This is Derek Hayward at police headquarters, where an attack on a woman in broad daylight has prompted an internal investigation.
I'm Glenn Fisher, and we'll show you some of the world's best bike riders in the streets of Jacksonville.
And I'm Kathy Turner. Some clouds have moved in on our otherwise terrific Tuesday. I'll tell you how long they'll last and what the rest of our week looks like.
You're watching WJKS, Channel 17, home of NewsWatch Jacksonville. News with Debbie Ferraro and Doug McElway. AccuWeather with Kathy Turner. Sports with Irv White. And now, NewsWatch Jacksonville.
You've probably seen this truck in your neighborhood belonging to a very successful local contractor. Tonight, he's our city's 36th murder victim of the year. Good evening, I'm Debbie Ferraro.
And I'm Doug McElway. The violent crime spree in Jacksonville continues. A popular Jacksonville contractor is murdered. His wife, shot in the head, lies near death, and the killer is still at large. NewsWatch reporter Jim Piggott shows us how this latest crime is affecting a West Side neighborhood.
Throughout the day, friends and relatives stood outside Jimmy Smith's house and asked why. One man in tears told me he couldn't understand how someone could have just walked in last night and shot Smith and his wife. The only witness, the Smith's 17-year-old daughter, who had told police that she had earlier saw a man talking to her father. She came running down the stairs when she heard gunshots and then saw the man run off.
I can't believe the guy would just wander through a neighborhood and look for a family to kill. He had to know something about Jimmy. Maybe Jimmy didn't know him, but he knew Jimmy.
Smith was a drywall contractor in Mandarin. He'd been in business for 12 years. Normally this lot is filled with his employees, but today they were all gone. People working next door told us that they're going to feel the loss.
When I walked in the office this morning, my boss told me that he had been killed. I could not believe that somebody would do that to such a nice person.
It's easy to see that Jimmy Smith had lots of friends from all of the people that have gathered around the house today. And what's bothering a lot of them is they say that the killer must have known him as well. Neighbors claim the Smiths were always ready to help a friend with a loan or a gift.
Neighbors, same with his employees, same with his family, all of them. I never knew he had an enemy.
But others say his friendliness and his willingness to give made him an easy target, and that could have led to his death. Jim Piggott, NewsWatch Jacksonville.
Mrs. Smith is in critical and unstable condition at University Hospital tonight. Very poor shape indeed. Also tonight, police are still searching for the killer.
And police are also investigating one of their own tonight, an internal investigation into why a policewoman apparently failed to question suspects in a weekend attack on a woman in a high-crime area. The victim was targeted by rock-throwing thugs when she accidentally drove into the Pottsford Park apartments on Saturday. A policewoman showed up but never filed a report and never questioned any suspects, according to the victim. And that is only one of a fistful of complaints about daylight attacks in the Pottsford Park complex. Our Derek Hayward is there now where the latest attack occurred. Derek, does this mean Jacksonville has graduated to the likes of Miami and New York, where some areas aren't even safe in the day?
Well, that appears to be the case, Debbie. If you talk to people who live out here, they either don't want to talk about it or they tell you that people here get attacked in daylight all the time. Daylight doesn't seem to have anything to do with it anymore.
Well, I know they were shooting, you know. At first, I thought it was firecrackers.
It started with drug dealers and customers and guns at night. But despite increased undercover work, police could not contain the violence. It has spread beyond the drug business. Even a TV repair truck came under fire last September.
We heard a couple of popping sounds. Then it sounded like someone hit the side of the van with a brick.
Then Saturday, in broad daylight, this woman is attacked by rock-throwing youths after she makes a wrong turn into a high-crime area.
These young men tried to hurt me severely and laughed when they saw I was hurt. They thought it was a big joke. And I just wanted...
Were you surprised to find...
Yes, I couldn't believe it. That's the reason I rolled down my window and said, what are you doing to my car?
On a Jacksonville street in broad daylight.
Behind the post office, around Channel 17, around the fire station. I was really surprised.
And another woman says she was also attacked. Same way, same place. Both women complain police did nothing to apprehend suspects.
They didn't want to be bothered with it, to tell you the truth.
What do you mean?
Well, we ran up to the Minute Market after that, and we spoke with 3 policemen that night. And they acted more afraid than anything else.
No, that's not true either. Our officers are told to enforce the law, and they do enforce the law, and especially in areas where the high crime is at. You have to keep in mind the number of officers that we have on the street and the other calls for service. Cuts down a little bit on preventive.
And they are, of course, though, looking into the way the officer handled the one incident that happened on Saturday. On one other note here, Deb, we happen to have shown you 2 victims who happen to be white.
But you have to remember there's nothing racial here, that most of the victims of this violence are the people who live here. Most of the victims are black.
Derek, what's to be done about these places that are unsafe all of the time?
Well, police have stepped up surveillance here, and basically this and a lot of other projects around town are under surveillance almost all the time. But they've tried that in other cities too, and the sheriff admits that he's still frustrated with the drugs and the violence that we've got in places like this.
Thanks very much, Derek Hayward, live from Pottsboro Park. Doug?
The man who takes care of security for Duval Public Schools got fired today. Dick Davis was security chief since 1985. Questions first arose in 1986 about the security system designed to spot burglars and fires. Those questions got even louder after last year's big fire at Lehigh. There are other concerns about fire safety tonight for you motorists who use the Acosta Bridge, and they center around the pilings that support the entire structure. Are they in danger of falling? Well, no, at least according to a report issued by the DOT today. But unofficially, the DOT says there is no evidence of scour or erosion. More on that story with Dan Scanlon. Dan?
Well, Doug, we are floating right next to the Acosta Bridge right now, the same bridge the DOT says has no scour or evidence of erosion under its pilings. But they do admit that what's on top of those pilings is in worse shape than what's under.
We still have the bridge rated as a normal load bridge, which says it's in fairly good shape.
Divers spent more than a week 90 feet under the St. Johns River earlier this year looking at the Acosta's footings. This tape shot during their last inspection shows the same thing they saw. No evidence that erosion has gotten under the 65-year-old concrete. But the bridge's superstructure is showing its age and badly. Last year's DOT report shows parts of the bridge that hold it up are badly corroded. Many of the anchor bolts, say the report, are 50% corroded, some others completely gone. Overall, the DOT report says the bridge's rating is a 4 out of 10. It goes on to say the Acosta Bridge is not worth fixing and repairs don't hold. Yet the DOT still insists the bridge is safe to use.
It's rated for a normal load. At some places on the bridge, there is extensive corrosion, but the original design had such a huge safety factor to it. It still has a safety factor of 1.9 or better at its weakest point.
But one of the men who once inspected the bridge for the DOT disagrees.
I wouldn't drive across the Acosta Bridge, nor would I allow anyone to do it. As a matter of fact,
Jacksonville Beach City Council member Bill Cooper worked as a DOT inspector on the Acosta and says the bridge should be shut down.
It's in better than halfway deteriorated condition. It's about 40% of capacity.
Can maintenance and repairs keep that bridge in a fair, safe, usable condition as DOT says it is?
It would be too costly in the opinion of the previous reports that we filed.
Now, the DOT has spent $3 million in the past 12 years repairing this bridge. They say they'll keep on doing that until the new bridge is built, $130 million worth in 1991. Doug?
Okay, Dan, thank you very much for your report. We appreciate it.
The Main Street Bridge and several downtown streets closed to traffic today for one of the premier bicycle races in the world. It's the 100-mile Jacksonville leg of the Tour of the Americas race, and nearly 100 cyclists pedaling through downtown for the first of 7 races in Florida. Irv has the results later, but the racers caught a break with the weather.
It was awfully nice today. Kathy's checking the AccuWeather charts to see if it'll stick around for a while. Kathy?
Well, I don't know who scheduled that race, but they definitely picked the best day in our forecast. It was terrific. Now, we've had the clouds move in, and that will help insulate us tonight. So I think we're going to be rather mild. Our overnight low is expected to drop off to around 51 degrees. But in addition to insulating us, well, those clouds could give us some showers. About a 20% chance of rain. Winds from the south and southeast at 6 to 12 miles an hour. Now, we have an opportunity for rain coming out of the south tonight, but tomorrow morning, the rain could come from the north. We'll take a look at all of that and what follows the rain when we come back. Doug and Deb?
Thanks, Kathy. Our exclusive political forecast for Super Tuesday is ahead.
And I'll continue my trek around the First Coast, tonight discovering St. Augustine.
A radical change tonight in one of the 2 presidential primary races. Our exclusive NewsWatch Gallup poll of Southern voters has revealed Michael Dukakis holding a commanding lead over the 5 remaining Democratic candidates. The Massachusetts governor has increased his Southern support from just 8% in January to 26% in this latest survey. Candidates Gary Hart and Jesse Jackson suffered the biggest drops in tonight's poll, with Richard Gephardt gaining. On the Republican side, Vice President George Bush has maintained his lead in the South, but Senator Bob Dole does appear to be gaining strength. Jack Kemp and Pat Robertson remain well behind the frontrunners in the Gallup survey. Tonight's results do vary substantially from a New York Times Scripps-Howard survey released over the weekend. Gallup President Andrew Kohut says the instability of the primary races is reflected in these varying polls.
I think what we're all showing is a great deal of uncertainty on the part of voters in the South. Almost every poll has a different front runner. And what that reflects is that people really haven't made up their minds. There's low reliability in what they're saying at this point in time.
2 Midwestern states will make their presidential preferences known tonight. Voters in South Dakota will cast their votes in state primaries, while Minnesota will hold party caucuses. And we'll have the results tonight at 11 on Night Watch.
Well, if you took a poll of tourist attractions in the state of Florida, St. Augustine would rank among the top. The city draws upward of 1.2 million people a year. And it's a safe bet that a fair percentage of those visitors have taken a carriage ride with Ken Capo. If you haven't, here's your chance to meet him in tonight's installment of my series, Discovering the First Coast. You've probably seen Ken Capo before. He's been a tour guide for the St. Augustine Transfer Company for about 7 years. Almost every day for those 7 years, this is what you hear Ken say, spoken in standard tour guide dialect.
Ponce de Leon had already landed somewhere near here in 1513. He sighted land on an Easter Sunday, and he called it Florida, which means flowers.
Ken's recitation goes on, and while it's fascinating stuff, what's more fascinating are Ken's own impressions about St. Augustine. He was born and raised in this town, and he doesn't mind telling you that he likes it better the way it used to be.
It was a lot more quaint back then than it is now, I think.
But what bothers Ken even more has nothing to do with tourism. There's something missing in this place the Indians once called Saloy, for place where the porpoises came. You haven't seen any porpoises in there at all?
I haven't seen any porpoises since about the middle of November.
And it used to be an everyday occurrence.
Just practically every day, especially on a pretty day. And the tide would be rising.
But the changes in the bay are no more extreme than the changes at the old Ponce de Leon Hotel. Not that the changes here are bad. But you don't expect to see college kids running through what used to be the stomping grounds of the nation's wealthiest VIPs. If this isn't the most elegant college dormitory anywhere, I don't know what is. A couple of students took me behind the scenes here. Every room has a fireplace and a view of this courtyard.
Everything around here is old. It's original, so it kind of gives you the original feeling.
But the rooms are absolutely ordinary compared to the dining hall where Flagler college kids eat every day. They sit in mahogany chairs, hand-carved in Austria before the turn of the century. No two are exactly alike. They look out stained glass windows built by a guy named Tiffany. The ceilings in this room just underwent a year-long restoration, part of a total room restoration, which will ultimately cost $2 million. By the way, 2 words which are never uttered in this room are food fight.
No, never. It's not Animal House.
They learned to respect this place, and so do the people who live and work in this place, the nation's oldest city.
What a gorgeous hotel, and I
unbelievable.
understand they didn't waste any time building it either.
No, Mr. Flagler, of course, who built that thing, had an awful lot of money, and when you have an awful lot of money, you can afford to build things quickly. He finished it in 2 years just by hiring hundreds and hundreds of laborers.
Very
fascinating
nice.
man, really.
Oh, yeah.
Well, today was a perfect day for sightseeing in St. Augustine or anywhere else on the First Coast.
Kathy's up next to show us how much longer it'll last. Don't go away. Florida's getting most of its marijuana right here at home. In fact, the state is one of the nation's leading producers of the illegal weed. The new report by Florida law enforcers is based on pot seizures around the state. It says all of our fertile woodlands, along with a warm climate, make Florida a prime area for backwoods marijuana fields. I'm afraid we're going to be losing that warm climate for at least a few days.
Yeah, so my case of spring fever lasted just 1 day. Huh?
1 day, I'm afraid so. But what better weather to follow all of that rain than lots of sunshine for all of our, as Mr. Capo said, flowers, because we are named after the flowers.
Beautiful.
We had 75 degrees today, and, well, it's going to drop back a little bit, but the flowers were looking terrific out in the south side. Currently, right here in the Jacksonville area, we've got mostly cloudy skies, and the temperature has fallen off from our 75-degree high today down to around 66 degrees. Now, as far as our conditions this evening, we're going to hold on to mild temperatures. They'll drop rather slowly. It's 66 now. We expect to drop off to around 51. Humidity is 58%. The wind out of the northwest at 5 miles an hour. The barometer on the rise, 30.08. And today, the air quality was 43 ozone. Well, we've got the cloud cover out there. You can see it across the southeast satellite picture. It's broken, but it's there. Add in the rain, and we're seeing it coming from 2 different directions. One to our south, another one to the north. I think tonight, if we get any rain, it would probably come from that southern source. It is a tropical wave that's developed along the southern portion of the state, a little bit of a front that's taken on a stationary position, but overall it's pushing now towards the north. So as we're starting to see the rain creep up towards the Daytona and Tampa area, there is about a 20% chance of seeing it in our viewing area later on this evening. And then rain in the morning comes from the cold front that is stretched across Atlanta and moving right down through the New Orleans area and out into the Gulf. Well, we'll broaden our picture out for you, and you can see the source of the cooler air still sitting well back to our west, but this cold front is going to be coming through later on tonight and throughout the morning hours. That's going to give us the chance of rain, definitely keep us on the cloudy side. And as far as any adverse weather along with it, well, there was 2 to 6 inches of snow that fell from West Virginia up through Pennsylvania. The ski resorts picked up a little snow cover, so they didn't mind at all. And temperatures today, well, up in the Dakotas, 21 degrees. But overall, that's pretty much on the average range for this time of year. Temperatures in the 50s up over Boston, and, well, we had 75 degrees, nothing to complain about. Over the southwest, temperatures in the 50s, 60s, and the lower 70s. Over southern Texas, 69 degrees down in Brownsville this afternoon. Now, tomorrow, again, we expect that cold front to move through. So in the morning hours, I think that we will see some rain. It'll pass by, and then high pressure will take over for the next couple of days. But another high pressure will be moving through on Friday, and that's going to reinforce our cooler air that we'll see in the long-range forecast. Now, because of the winds associated with the frontal passage, tomorrow, moderate chop expected, winds out of the northwest at 8 to 18 knots. There's your season surf. That surf temperature is 56 degrees. High and low tide for tomorrow, sunrise and sunset. And the long-range forecast, 68 tomorrow, chance of rain, especially in the morning. On Thursday, around 60, Friday, 63, 63 again on Saturday. So after we get by this little rain period, the temperatures don't look too bad, just a little bit below normal, but some sunshine.
Today's a day you really had to relish, though.
Yeah, we're not going to see that for a while.
Frank says one of the all-time great ones, in my opinion. Well, the weather was just about perfect for the bike race, of course, today. Irv's up next with a look at the finishers.
And Fish shows us the crazy costume of the racer, tour of the Americas, when we turn to sports.
There's a plane arriving here in the morning to take you to Mexico City.
On Magnum.
If we can keep you alive that long.
A beautiful agent.
You're a dead man if Velez's men see you.
A gang of killers.
Any idea how many men Velez brought with him?
As many as it takes to kill you.
And a mistaken identity.
You don't really care whether I'm the Magnum you're looking for or not, do you?
Flies Thomas.
Look out!
Into the face of death.
Can you swear I'm the man you're looking for?
I would have had to have killed you sooner or later.
On Magnum. Magnum, tomorrow at 5 on WJKS.
Today, our video notes center around the military. Former Secretary of Defense Caspar Weinberger was knighted by Queen Elizabeth in London today. He receives Britain's highest Medal of Honor in thanks for his defense of British interests while in the Pentagon, especially during the Falklands War. And a French defender is visiting Jacksonville this week. The frigate Detroit will be open to the public at Mayport tomorrow and Thursday as well, between 2 and 5 in the afternoon. And something exciting downtown early this afternoon.
Couldn't have been a better day for a bicycle race. I certainly hope the Americans did well.
Yes, the Americans did. You know, if you were spending your lunch break downtown, you had a little extra scenery running around the streets. Americans finished first and second in the Tour of the Americas bike race through the streets of downtown Jacksonville this morning. Ideal weather conditions greeted the field of this unique event, which began 2 days of racing in Venezuela before changing venues to Jacksonville for the first of 5 straight days of racing in the Sunshine State. The 4.5-mile course began and finished at the Civic Auditorium, winding over the Main Street Bridge and around the Gator Bowl. Now, the 96 riders needed over 4 hours to complete the 100 miles. The favorite, former Tour de France winner Greg LeMond, laid back early and then put on his charge, but he had to settle for second place behind Davis Finney, a former bronze medal winner for the United States. Finney says the 7-Eleven teammates played a big role in his victory.
What happens is that there's always riders who are from other teams who are trying to get ahead, and my team just sat up there right on the front, breaking the wind.
Well, there were a couple of crashes in the race today. This one at the Prudential turning point. Jose Lindardi suffered a head injury. These crashes are commonplace in this sport, and that's the main reason LeMond stays in the back of the pack in the early going.
What I try to do is stay at the very back so I can make sure I don't fall down. And then at the end, when it's starting to go fast and everybody takes their place, I move to the front.
Now, the riders head down to Orlando tomorrow, Tampa on Thursday, and then they'll finish up in Miami over the weekend. A total of $150,000 in prize money up for grabs. Among the spectators today, sports director Glenn Fisher, who found the lighter side of the event.
If you thought this was just another bike race, think again. These riders resemble the NASCAR drivers with all their patches and sponsor logos.
It's not quite like NASCAR, but they're like riding billboards, actually, is what they are. In this field, we have, I'll say we have a dozen riders that make 100,000 plus a year.
They're not only colorful, but stylish as well. Check out the shades. Now, how often do you see glasses like this? Well, today, they were everywhere.
Makes you look kind of neat. Everybody thinks you know what you're doing when you walk around with a pair of Oakleys on. Hey, these are hot. You like these? These are Bolé. This is a sponsor. Let's get that on the...
Is that what all the bikers were?
Right.
As for the competition itself, it's pretty exciting, but you got to be quick because once they go by, it's 16 minutes before they come again. What are you doing in between the lull here?
Twiddle my fingers. That's about the only thing you can do right now.
The crowd watching's almost as good as the bike racing.
If we were doing this in Burlington, Vermont, and it was snowing, it'd be a problem. But, you know, with the sun out like this, it's great.
Some took advantage of the weather and worked on their tan. And even the amateur bikers are out doing their thing. All in all, it was a fun day for those who took in the action downtown. Glenn Fisher, NewsWatch, Jacksonville.
Well, the Soviets and East Germans lead the medal count so far at the Winter Olympics. This is the 5th consecutive Winter Games in which 2 countries have dominated. Going into today's events, the Soviets held the lead with 20 medals, 7 golds, 7 silvers, and 5 bronze. Nearly half the 81 medals awarded so far have gone to the Soviets and East Germans. Now, the United States won only its 2nd gold medal of the Games last night when speed skater Bonnie Blair set a new world record in the 500 meters. Blair's time of 39.10 seconds was 2/100ths of a second faster than East Germany's Krista Rothenberger. Blair is set to compete in both the 1,000 and 1,500 meters and feels her chances of gold in those events is good.
I've been feeling good ever since I've been here. I felt good on the ice, mentally. Just everything seems to be going pretty well. And I think if I can skate to my best capabilities, I'm hoping that, you know, medals can also be won in the 1,000 and hopefully in the 1,500 as well.
I think she's a determined youngster. I think she's going to do it.
After seeing her win last night, well, that made the Winter Olympics worth it. I just thought that was
Made you want to tune in and watch, huh?
Oh, you betcha.
Make the Summer Olympics more worth it when we win a lot more medals, hopefully.
Oh, yes. Well, when was the last time you sang Happy Birthday to a Dolphin?
You've just been waiting for the chance, right? Well, you'll get your chance right after this. We'll bring you up to date on world and national news tonight at 11 on Night Watch.
And back at home, Suzanne Gatto has the tragic story of a 9-month-old Jacksonville baby who's died of AIDS.
Greg Coy will show us an unusual new program designed to help underprivileged kids in our city. All this ahead on Night Watch at 11.
Finally, a milestone for JU tonight. Well, not really the school, but its mascot. Nellie the Dolphin was born 35 years ago this week at Marineland. Basketball coach Rich Haddad and several of the cheerleaders stopped by to wish her a happy one. Nellie enjoyed the attention while her trainer served the birthday cake. Nellie, though, preferred fish, along with the applause. At 35, Nellie's thought to be the oldest dolphin in captivity. I don't blame her for turning up her nose at the cake. It was made of cardboard.
Well, that would taste better than a fish-flavored cake. I can't even...
Not to Nellie. No.
I can't even stand anchovies.
Fish.
Thank you, Deb. We'll be back at 11. Hope to see you then. Good night.
Bye-bye.